Hey guys, what's up? It's me, Alexander Jarvis from alexanderjarvis.com, and we'll be dealing with the marketplace financial model now. This is the third video, and we're going to be dealing with the control sheet, which is one of the most important sheets that you need to fill in before you actually start doing anything else in the model. So obviously the first sheet, if you've watched the previous two videos, you'll know that you want to be setting what the actual start date is and when your forecast of the model will be starting, as well as your year end. So long as your currency is in dollars, that's fine. Corporation tax rate, and then we're going to go into the control sheet. Now, I know that certain people will know less about their business, about how marketplaces work, how marketing works. They'll have different levels of assumptions about the knowledge of staff and expenses. Also, maybe you're busy, you don't have the time to do this properly. Whatever it is, you have your own individual circumstances, and that's fine. So I've tried to account for those by enabling you to get super detailed, or pretty basic actually. One of the also benefits of this is if you're relatively new to financial modeling, you can start with the basic versions of those and see how the model works out and triangulate to whereabouts you want it to be. So if you know through the basic version approximately how many G&A people you think you can hire, well then when it comes to doing the detailed version, you know what the cadence is for that, and you can effectively transpose and fill out in more detail the exact specifics in the detailed version. Or in the marketing sheets, you could start out with a basic version on your supply and demand side marketing, and then work out to the much more detailed marketing sheets over time. However it is you want to do it, I'm going to explain to you how it works in this model. There's a little bit to cover. So probably the easiest way for us to do is to start at the top, work our way down. So we'll start with the staff, go to the revenue, then the registrations and marketing. I'm going to pop different assumptions in, and then we're going to go to the sheets, and you'll see which bits you want to use and which bits you don't want to use. Now, something funky that I've built into this is using conditional formatting to effectively blank out or highlight which parts you should be using. And by using groupings, you can then hide the parts which you don't want to see. Now, if you want to then change that again, all you need to do is change the assumption from, say, basic to detailed just by literally clicking on whatever it is you want, like that simply, and everything will change for you, and just re-clicking it. So if you start out the basic version, you input your assumptions and they'll stay there. But I built in drivers which use a choose function to pick from the left one or left on the two, and then decide where they should be pulling it into. So they will flow through the model. So even if you have two versions saved, both will actually be in there. And by changing the assumption button on the control page, you can change what the rest of the model will be linking into. So let's just see a real example of this right now. So we'll say we're going to set it as the basic version. So we click basic, staff sheet, detail versus basic, and then we go to the staff sheet, which is about the 12th sheet here. Now we see basic, detailed. The basic one's highlighted, the detailed one's in gray. So if you open that, you see it's all gray. So that should signify you shouldn't be touching it. So all we need to do is group that up again, or click one, it gets all grouped again. But we want the basic version here. So we're going to open this up. And here we can see all the assumptions that are in here. So the ones with the yellow boxes, payrolls and taxes, when you're going to hire new staff, salaries, bonuses, etc., and this will be covered in another video, you'll fill all that in. But you won't be filling anything of the detail parts. And the charts all link to the basic version. And you'll see up here the summary. This is linked to the basic version. So these are the choose functions I mentioned. Choose left links to the control sheet and basically just takes the first number, which is 1 or 2, and then decides, are we picking up this one or are we picking up this one? So that's that. So if we go back and say we want the detailed version, we'll go back to control, click on detailed. We'll go back to the staff sheet here. We'll see now basic is out, blanked out. We'll hide that. It's going to be accurate where you click. And then we'll click the detailed. And you can now see the detailed version is populated. And you fill out all this to do the detailed version. That's that. So back to control. So now let's click on the support staff. which is the support stuff here on DNS, demand and supply, we'll see that it's turned on. Now we can actually turn it off if we're not going to use it, and it'll gray out. You see it's all grayed out, or we click on Control again, turn it back on, and it'll be highlighted again. You can see everything. Okay. Where are these summaries? It'll also null the numbers out when you turn the control numbers on or off, and so it won't flow in. And so this sheet is going to support staff is linked in the staff sheet into automations, which are, for example, that customer care. So this is COGS. So we'll see here. This is where they're going to be linked to, right? And it links into this sheet. So when it's turned off, these numbers won't be here anymore. Okay, that was it. Simple. Now the exact same thing applies for the sales staff. This is this sheet, which links again into the sales section of the staff sheet. Sales and marketing, see sales supported. And we can turn that on and off as well, just by clicking Control. Off. And now it's all blank, see? Then it doesn't link into the staff sheet anymore. Well, there's numbers out, except for the channel staff, which is different, okay? And that's calculated in the last sheets in the model, on both the supply side and the demand side. Okay, cool. Now we've covered the staff section, let's deal with how we generate revenue. Now we have, on the supply side, there are 4 potential streams of revenue you can charge, and we have 6 on the demand side. So now if we move all up here, so in the revenue side, we've got 4. Let's just look at transaction revenue, for example. See, numbers are here. If we go back to Control, and we turn off this revenue stream, it's all gone blank. It doesn't matter anymore. So it's an easy way just to be able to focus on what it is you do want to focus on and don't focus on. So say you're a membership site and you just want to deal with membership revenue. Well, all you do is go to Control, and we're going to change these to no. And the only revenue stream that we can actually see or want to fill in is going to be for the membership revenue. The listings and etc. are going to be turned off. See, all grayed out. So you group that up. We're going to group up this one again. And the only one we're going to care about when we look at the model is this revenue stream. It's cool, right? Now, exactly the same thing applies in demand. So again, I don't know, let's pick affiliate revenue just for fun. So we're going to turn these off because we only do affiliate revenue. So select these no. There we go. Also, bear in mind, all you need to do is null out the assumptions by putting in zeros, and it has the same effect, but this is just a quicker version of doing it, and visually it's easy to remember what's going on here. Bear in mind, of course, just because they're revenue streams doesn't mean you have to use them. The model is there to account for all sorts of business models and different stages. So, if right now you only use 1 or 2 revenue streams, well, in future, when you redo this model or you change your business model, you can turn those revenue streams on again and put in your assumptions. Or if you want to have a look and play, do some scenarios and see what would happen if you added a new revenue stream, well, you could turn it on, put in some assumptions, see how that would contribute to your revenue, and then turn it off again if you actually don't want it there anymore. So I think we said affiliate revenue here. So you pick the group below it. And we can see this is all highlighted, and hopefully the next one is all grayed out. So the only one we'll see when you are playing with the model are these numbers. There we go. So we've just covered revenue now on supply and the demand side. Again, if you want to change these, all you do is you just change them back to yes, like that. Or you can use a keyboard. If you're on PC, click Alt down or up. It does it too. So I do things on keyboard because that's how I was taught to do it when I was investment banker. Right, that's simple. Now we're going to deal with something slightly harder, okay? And this is what took me a long time to really figure out how to do properly, is I'm going to enable you to either make more simple marketing and conversion assumptions or a lot more detailed versions. So we'll start at the top again, which is marketing sheets driven. And by the way, it says 1, 2, 3, 4. You can know which one to drop down, and there's a description of what it means. So basically, marketing sheets driven means that if you decide on to use the basic or the detailed version, that'll be the drivers for it. And so if you have it on detailed for both, it means that you actually can use all of these sheets and they're going to drive into the marketing sheet. So we'll have traffic drives into the marketing sheet. At that point, we can convert that traffic to registrations. If you don't want to have this sheet, this is just a simple way of turning it off. You just switch them again to off and they won't be calculating through the model. So this setting, okay, marketing sheets driven, detailed on, detailed on, is the most detailed version of this model that you can have. And so when you go to these marketing sheets, you're going to want to fill in both of these channel sales, both of these, both of these, both of these. And these are then from each side going to filter into the marketing and demand sheet. So we see basic is grayed out, details highlighted. You need to fill all, well, it's actually not that much to fill in these sheets, but there's more to fill into the other sheets. But again, you can see them all and you need to fill them in. I'll be explaining the marketing sheets in in future videos. So this video again is not explain all those aspects, it's explain the control sheet. So that's the most detailed setting that you can turn on. Now, you can also apply basic versions to each of these sheets if you want, but if you apply basic, then these don't filter through. To be safe, if you want, you can turn them on off, but I've got settings to account for that. But let's assume that we want to pick a different version of this. Well, the simplest way that you can do this is having manual supply and demand. And then if we go into registrations page, we'll see manual supply and demand. We'll see the marketing sheets driven here. It's all grayed out. And then all the other ones here, see these are blanked out as well. This is all you need to fill in. So this is the simplest way of doing it. For supply, demand, we've got cost per registrations, traffic spends, etc. on both sides. It's the simplest possible way for you to do this in the fastest way possible. And you completely ignore all the other sheets after this registration point. And these are going to go into the model driver, which picks which one to take from. So you see it's linked here, but it's also linked to these other places and up here, this choose function. But because it's linked to the control, taking the left, we see we're linking to these points here, right? And then this driver goes in through the summary and drives into the conversion page, where you're then going to make your calculations in here. Okay, that's the simplest possible way, and you don't have to do with any other marketing sheet. So maybe you just open up the model and you start there, see how it works, right? Get a broad idea, and then you can make it more complicated. Now, where are we? Control sheet. Here we go. Now let's pick the next one, right? So again, manual supply, all these sheets, you don't use them anymore, okay? So now we're going to pick, we've got two more. We've got a ratio to supply and we've got a ratio to demand. I'm not sure who necessarily will want to use this, but you'll know yourself if it matters. And the way I was thinking this is typically one side matters the most. Okay? It could be your supply side, it could be a demand side. And that's the trickiest thing about marketplace models, is a chicken egg thing. You know, if you want to go find a freelancer on a site, if you don't have freelancers, then, you know, I'm going to disappear. Whereas if you have lots of freelancers sign up and there's no one who wants to hire them, well, they're not going to hang around or respond, right? So you've got to build things up, which is called, you know, liquidity, and think about the ratios of that, which is why I built two versions called ratio of supply to demand and ratio of demand to supply. So on this basis, you can opt then to forecast one of the sides and just build a ratio to the other. So you can have both a basic and a detailed version of that side that you want. So if you want to have the detailed side, you're going to use the 4, say on the supply side, ratio to supply, you have 4 detailed marketing sheets, which have the S in it, not the D. That will drive into the marketing sheet, which will drive into your registrations sheet. And then in that registrations sheet, that's where, like for the manual supply and demand, you're going to make a basic ratio to supply for your demand. And so you'll just say, it doesn't matter how I scale my supply side, my demand side will always or potentially be in a ratio of say 3 to 1 or 1.5 to 1. So if it's 3 to 1, whatever you have in supply, We just assume that we're going to end up with 3 times that amount. And so with uncertainty, you'll just scale that up and then have to spend the money, however it is, in order to achieve that demand side, which means that you only have to think really about modeling one side and kind of assuming, with cost, of course, which you can opt for, that the other side will just be there, right? So if we have a ratio to supply, what you're going to do is ignore the demand side, and we're going to focus on the supply side. So you can have a basic version of this and a detailed version. So if we look at the detailed version, that means you're going to use these 4 sheets, and then, because that's the detailed. If you have the basic version, then if you want, you can turn these off, because all that's going to matter is the basic version. But again, you don't have to keep turning them off if you don't want to. So we're going to use the basic version, which means we're going to do marketing on the supply side. We'll see the detailed part is all hidden, but the basic part is highlighted. We can fill these in. The demand side is completely irrelevant, okay? So then in registrations, we're going to change the setting here to the section that we want, which is ratio to supply. As you see, it's highlighted. Open it up and see the supply is going to come through the link assumptions up here. We see 100. So this 100 is going to come out the supply side marketing sheet, and we'll see that it's, wherever that is, number is, 100, right? 105, 110, 100, 105, 110, 100, 105, 110. Now, we want to multiply that to the ratio to supply. So see, supply to ratio demand is going to be 3x. Therefore, if we have 100 in supply, we'll have 300 in demand. That needs to have a cost typically, unless you assume it's going to be free. So we'll say each person costs $6, which will grow at a certain point, every single month. And we know how much we're going to spend on that demand side, which will then be a cost item in your profit and loss. But there we go. We can do exactly the same thing again. Let me get back to the control sheet. By doing it on a more detailed version, on a ratio of supply to demand, right? Which again, the same thing will apply. You'll fill in the marketing sheet. You'll have to fill in these 4 sheets, which again, you want to turn on. Or if you don't do channel sales, again, you can turn off and you fill in these sheets or 1 sheet, whatever it is you want to do. There you go. So exactly the same thing applies on the ratio of demand to supply. You just change that to ratio of demand. And what we care about is here. So we can have detailed or basic again. If it's basic, these are not going to use. If it's detailed, we are going to use them. So we're doing a ratio of demand to supply. So we're going to go into our registration sheet. We'll hide the old version of ratio to supply, and we'll open up the ratio to demand. So we see now this is populated. So the ratio of demand to supply will be, say, 3. So for every 100 people, we're going to end up with 33 on the supply side. And this 100 number is going to be coming from marketing sheet. See, 100, right? If you want to use the detailed version, again, you just change the detail, turn on and off the sheets that you want, and you can build that again. Now, hopefully I've been able to make this fairly simple for you to understand, just by actually walking you through step by step. But the only real way you're going to really get it is just by opening the sheet and playing around with the settings yourself. And the cool thing is, because I've enabled you to show and to hide all the aspects, it'll be much easier for you to be able to filter it through because it gets highlighted, right? So go have a play and understand it. Then look at the number of inputs that you want to put in and decide, do I understand all these inputs? Do I have, depending on how old your company is, like the track record of metrics? Can I find benchmarks which are reasonable or not? Or maybe you've been around for a while and you really know your shizzle, right? In which case, hey, I got a hang on this, right? I'm gonna use a detailed version for everything, and I'm gonna put in the time. And when it comes to communicating with investors, or just for knowing for myself and setting KPIs with the entire marketing team, I know exactly what it is that we're going to do, and I can use this to communicate with the sales marketing team what they need to achieve themselves. So there we go, guys. That's that video. Go have a play with these, change them around, click on the sheet which they're related to, and see what happens. And if you kind of get confused, come back and watch this video, because as I said, I've walked it through you. In the next videos, we're going to go through each one of these sheets. The next one is going to be going through the P&L sheets, which are pretty easy to do, other than really the P&L actual. It just involves a bit of finding the data and then populating it in. But this is the first thing that you want to be doing, because as you see, you want to make sure you're going to be filling in the right fields in this page. If you've got any questions, sound out in the comments below and I'll be happy to respond. All right, bye guys.